People who really think a lot until they get over it are miserable to be with. We love you so much. But it's because they have strong opinions about everything. Wanted and unwanted, pros and cons, pluses and minuses. In other words, you're a fact finder about everything. But having active marbles about the things that you really don't want to live or even remember, and certainly not replicate or live again, you want to deactivate that stuff. And you can't deactivate something by thinking about it and saying, I'm not going to think about that anymore, because you're thinking about that thing that you don't want to think about right now. While you're not going to think about it, you're thinking about it. So what you want to do is activate. Well, what kind of guidance do you use to activate what you want? If we were standing in your physical shoes, we would accept that our inner being exists, and we would do our best to activate our thoughts to match our inner beings. And it's pretty easy, because you don't activate your thoughts. You reach for a feeling. Let's just play with this just for a bit here. It'll be helpful for everyone. So your inner being feels confident and really frisky and playful and in love with life and eager and sure-footed, flexible and ready and willing and capable. Now we're talking about your inner being on your behalf. We're not talking about your inner being as separate from you. We're talking about how your inner being sees you and how your inner being knows you. More, eager for more, expansive, outrageously expansive, really. Sky's the limit. Sky is the unlimited expansion, really. Willingness is such a strong part of that. Willingness to focus and see it through all the way. And so you're going to find yourself tripping up just a little bit in the next day or two as you feel really strongly this, and then you try to talk yourself out of it, because that's your practice, because you've been trained to be objective. And you know what your inner being wants to say about that? Cut it out. You know what feels good and what doesn't. Why do you put up with what doesn't feel good? Well, I'm supposed to love this addict. I'm supposed to feel good about this person who is so hard to feel good around. Talk about a struggle that you will never win. I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this when my inner being is calling me another way constantly, because my inner being is saying, that's the other end of the stick. You want this end. It's very important that you hear this next sentence. Your inner being is not pushing against your mother. Your inner being is advocating for her and seeing her positive aspects. And maybe someday we'll call you to that too. But this isn't a conversation about looking at something that's really hard to feel good about and finding a way of feeling good about it. Look for the easiest things and feel good. Look for the easiest things to feel good about and feel good until you have shown yourself, because that's the way the path of most allowance starts happening. As you show yourself, we're not telling you anything that you don't know. We can feel you intellectually understand every bit of it, but it's not something that you easily practice because you are so in your head. Smart people are. And it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Just be a selective sifter. You know what the difference between somebody who's really smart is and somebody who's considered genius, groundbreaking, breaking all the barriers and leading your world into whole new places that it had never been before? The difference between that kind of genius and really, really smart is putting the factor in, I'm only willing to think about the things that really feel good to me. Because most smart people contradict every thought. So they just constantly clutter the environment. But someone who thinks and feels and thinks and feels and thinks and feels and thinks and feels gains momentum and momentum and momentum and momentum and momentum and momentum until thoughts that have never been thought before are thought by them. Processes that have never been known before are discovered by them. Seas part for them in ways that they've never parted for anybody. That's what you're looking for, that kind of calibration. No longer calibrating to the marbles in the room, calibrating to those marbles. You're really young and you've already lived enough life to have let your inner being know who you are. And your inner being has been on the case of gathering the cooperative components for a very long time. It's time for you to be one of those consistent cooperative components.
Play with it, yeah.
You've got to give up. We're talking to everybody now. You've got to give up your feeling of uncomfortable, your feeling of regret about not knowing everything before that you now know. You all just took a big step into understanding just as a result of the conversations that have taken place here today. Your world is not ever going to be the same. Your point of attraction has shifted dramatically. Own it and connect the dots. Notice the things that are happening now that weren't happening a very short time ago. That's how it works. Because words, even our wonderful words that are all about the laws of the universe and how they really, really work, don't mean diddly squat. It's only your life experience that gives you the knowing.